Hi everyone, my name is Dialectic, and today I'd like to review a game that I recently played in the monthly Terraforming Mars Top 50 tournament on Board Game Arena. This game was played against B Walsh 96, who, by the way, is the organizer of the tournament, so thanks to B Walsh for putting these tournaments together. I chose to review this game because the game features some interesting endgame decision making and strategies, and I think players of all skill levels may find it interesting to hear my decision making process throughout this game. And before I get to the opening hand, let me quickly go over the milestones and awards on this map. This game is being played on Vastitas Borealis, so it's kind of interesting in and of itself because this map hasn't been played a ton. So to start, we have Agronomist, which is 4 plant tags, Engineer, which is 10 combined energy and heat production, Spacefarer, which is 4 space tags, Geologist, which is 3 tiles placed on or adjacent to the 4 different volcanic hexes, and finally Farmer, which is 5 combined animal and microbe resources on cards. For the awards, we have Traveler, which is most combined Jovian and Earth tags, Landscaper, which is the largest single group of tiles, Highlander, which is most number of tiles not adjacent to an ocean, Promoter, which is the most number of played event cards, and Blacksmith, which is the most combined steel and titanium production. As for the map itself, you'll notice there are a lot of fertile ocean tiles. There's 6 ocean tiles that award 2 plants each. It's quite a lot. And there's also a lot of lucrative cash rebates next to the ocean as well. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different spaces that award 6 cash back, theoretically, which is quite a lot, and also quite a few spaces that award 4 cash back. And on top of that, we've got 2 different tiles that award 2 cards and 5 other cards throughout the map. So quite a lot to be had by playing on the board here. A lot of these are in tricky to reach locations though, so you definitely want to be able to spread around the board a lot in this map. Also worth noting that there are 6 heat that you can collect from these oceans, and 1 temperature bump that you can get for 4 mega credits, similar to the ocean placement bonus on the south pole of the Hellas board. So that could be relevant to certain games. All right, so let's look at the starting hand. For corporations, we have Terractor and Vitor. There's not really anything for Terractor in this hand, despite the fact that the large amount of starting cash is generically good. We don't have any Earth tags. Vitor, we're going to get a lot more than 15 cash in terms of rebates from this ability, considering we have a lot of strong victory point cards in hand already. As far as preludes go, Allied Banks is decent, generically good. Experimental Forest is one of the best preludes in the game. If you're interested in stats on preludes, I highly encourage you to check out tfmstats.com. Experimental Forest is usually near the top. It may be deceptive considering it's only 1 greenery, 1 production, but plant tags are generally pretty good. We also have Ecology Experts, which is only good very situationally. I'd really only consider 3 cards to be good with Ecology Experts, those being kelp farming, trees, and one of the cards that we have in our hand, which is farming. I think bushes and algae are somewhat marginal, and the animal cards like livestock, fish, and birds really suboptimal most of the time, except very specific cases. But given that we do have 1 card that is pretty good with Ecology Experts, and it also has a victory point icon on it, so we'll get the Vitor rebate. I think we're going to go with that. So we'll be taking Experimental Forest and Ecology Experts. And of course, there's a chance that we could get kelp farming from Experimental Forest. So we'll be playing that first, just to see what happens. As far as the card keeps, we'll definitely be taking farming. Algae is generically good. Tardigrades has some nice synergy with Farmer and our Vitor ability, so Feeling good about agronomist and farmer, maybe geologist as well, since we can place the experimental forest tile. Seems like we have a strong start for 3 milestones. Small animals will definitely be taking since oxygen will be going up quickly and it also synergizes with Vitor. Flooding will be taking to work with our algae. Anti-gravity technology, we don't have any science tags in hand, but this card's too strong to not keep in most opening hands unless it really doesn't synergize with your strategy, I think. So that leaves a few marginal cards. Local heat trapping we're not really interested in. We don't have any heat production. Space elevator is just too slow for us, and we have no way of getting steel. Titanium mine and Vestas shipyard are a little marginal. We don't have any titanium payoffs in our hand right now. And given that we have a lot to do and we're spending a lot of our initial cash on farming, I think it could be the right decision to skip both of those cards. I end up taking them, but as you'll see in the game, I do end up paying for that decision. So our opponent is playing Helion. They start with Mohole and Business Empire. This kind of shows off the great flexibility that you get from Helion. They can take their game plan in a number of different ways with this start, either pushing the heat track if they like, or they can spend their heat as cash. So that's one of the strengths of Helion is just its flexibility. So I'm going to go ahead and place Experimental Forest on this 2-card spot next to Uranius Solus and get working on Geologist. All right, let's just take a look through what was drawn. Methane from Titan is interesting. That would have been a nice one, but we won't have access to that. Always good to take note of space events like Comet and Big Asteroid. And besides that, Asteroid Mining Consortium is out, so feeling a little bit better about our decision to develop some titanium production. And as for what we drew from Experimental Forest, Adapted Lichen is a bit of a miss, but Arctic Algae with no oceans down, always good to see. Very strong card. So all in all, good Experimental Forest. We draw Hackers and Windmills from the 2-card spot. Hackers obviously irrelevant, but Windmills, great card for us, especially given its synergy with Vitor, and the oxygen should be going up quickly. So I go ahead and play Farming with Experimental Forest as I had planned. And we start off with a very nice 3-plant production. Opponent opens with Business Network, so they're going to be drawing some cards already. So as for the award fund, this is another good reason to take Vitor, that we have some clear funds available. As you can see, I end up going with Landscaper. I think there's an argument to be made for Highlander. We don't really know where the oceans are yet. Ideally, I'd like to be putting my granaries next to those oceans to get some cash back, which is hugely relevant. You can get tons of cash back if you play the ocean rebates well. So I'd like to be taking those, which makes me a little bit less confident about funding Highlander. So I think Landscaper seems like, without more information, seems like the most natural award to go for. We're going to develop the tardigrades, since we're going for farmer with this. Tardigrades can be easy to ignore even without the synergy with Vitor on this award. It's nice to be able to develop an action to be able to control and continue on in the generation, even if you don't have a lot to do. And the opponent develops even more cash production space hotels, so they're going to be quite rich this game. I do end up developing a titanium mine, and there's an opportunity cost behind it, spending 10 cash on this. Obviously, we'll generate more than 10 cash worth of titanium throughout the game, but that early cash is quite useful, especially if there is going to be a fight on milestones, or if there are valuable cards that come up in the draft that you want to play soon. such as nitrogen-rich asteroid. So yeah, if I hadn't spent the 10 cash on titanium mine, I'd be able to develop this right now. Of course, I didn't know this at the time, but this is often why you'll see stronger players spend not all of their cash, keep their options open depending on what comes up in the draw. So hard to say that it's a mistake to develop titanium mine here, but this is basically the price that I pay for having spent the cash, is that I'm going to have to wait a generation to develop this card. Obviously quite lucky to get this with already 3 plant tags down. So that's the obvious first pick. Technology demonstration here, good enough to take and keep, given that I have titanium production. And I'll keep those 2 cards. I've calculated here that I have enough cash to play Arctic algae, play flooding, and make a greenery conversion, and then still be able to play nitrogen-rich asteroid next generation, even with keeping 1 card in the draft. Opponent draws from Business Network. They develop mine, and they develop Miranda Resort for 3 production. So the rich get richer. So the opponent definitely has some stuff going on for them. They have card draw, they have lots of cash production, and 6 heat production. Okay, this is an interesting draft as well. So the last thing that I can do here is allow the opponent to develop more card draw, especially with how rich they are. So while I'm not sure that we're going to be playing AI Central, we definitely need to prevent them from having access to this card. And here, between design microorganisms and trees, trees is definitely the generically stronger card, a card that I'd like to have. Design microorganisms I won't be playing for sure, but given how rich the opponent is and given how early it is in the game, this would be a card that they'd be happy to play. So I'm going to, again, take this card to prevent them from playing it. And Advanced Ecosystems, definitely a card I like to see here, given that I have all of the tags available for it, and it synergizes with the Vitor ability. So we'll be taking that one. Some of you may be surprised that I won't be keeping AI Central here. Obviously, we do have AGT, so there is synergy there, but we're a little too cash poor to be focusing on that. We don't have any other science tags yet. So I'm not sure that this is going to be part of my game plan, but Advanced Ecosystems definitely should be, I think, and that's the card that we're going to keep here. We can't keep both of them because we really need to develop NRA this generation, and I don't want to sell 3 cards. Opponent buys again from Business Network, and I develop my NRA. Worth noting here, if I did have a little bit more cash, I'd be able to claim Agronomist right now, and then be able to claim Geologist next generation. I'm feeling fairly good about being able to get 2 milestones at this point, but the opponent develops Artificial Photosynthesis and Investment Loan, Solar Wind Power, and claims Spacefarer. So they're set up to be able to claim this minus 24 degree heat production and take Engineer as well. So this again is kind of the penalty that I'm paying for having spent the cash on titanium mine in Generation 1. Also, some consideration for having delayed Arctic algae a bit. Maybe I was a little too worried about losing value to opponents' oceans. I think it probably would have been worth it to delay this developing Arctic algae to ensure getting 2 milestones. That being said, it's not the end of the world for the opponent to get 2 milestones instead of 1. because I am quite cash poor, and that cash can be spent on other development. Okay, so Generation 4 draft. Dome Crater looks really good to me. We have lots of plant production, so this can score quite a bit of points for us. Martian Survey seems tempting, but we, again, are cash poor. We don't really need to be drawing more cards at this point. We just need to develop what we have in our hand already. Restricted area is really nice. This will advance us towards AGT. It'll let us get access to a new area of the board, and it'll allow us to compete with the opponent in terms of card draw. And this may seem somewhat at odds with what I said about AI Central earlier, but consider that restricted area is quite a bit cheaper than AI Central, and also has the additional benefit of giving us a tile placement. So developing restricted area is a lot less committal, a lot less expensive, but I would argue actually quite better for us in this situation. So this is a card I'm very happy to see. And here, Bush is a much stronger card than Archaebacteria, so I'll be taking that. And we'll buy the first 3 cards. A little too early to commit to Interstellar Colony Ship, I think. And we have a lot to do already. So I'm not going to spend our cash on that card. So here, obviously, the opponent is threatening to take a second milestone. There's really not much I can do to prevent them from doing that. I somewhat briefly considered playing a SP Asteroid, but that's really expensive, and they might be able to take it some other way anyway. So I think it just makes sense to develop normally here. I am going to try to force them to spend the cash, so I'm going to position myself to be able to claim Agronomist and Geologist by converting onto Uranius Tholus. So they go ahead and claim their milestone, which makes sense. I'm going to play the restricted area. I'll immediately use Hired Raiders to get some cash. And I'm briefly considering here deciding whether I could not claim the milestone right now and save the cash. But looking down at my opponent's board, we see they have 2 Psychrophiles. If they happen to have nitrite reducing bacteria, then they could take the milestone from me. So I think it makes sense to just claim it now. Okay, another really strong draft here. We would really love to have Ecological Zone with the synergy with Vitor and with advanced ecosystems. And we have a ton of plant cards in our hand too. However, Research Outpost is insanely strong for us given that it is advancing towards AGT and we have tons of plant prod. The opponent doesn't have a greenery down right now, so we're not sure how useful Ecological Zone will be for them right now. I imagine they'll get it done eventually, but Research Outpost seems like it has to be the card to take, sadly. Another interesting choice here. Strip Mine is strong for the opponent, I think. They're already ready to play it, given that they have 3 energy production, and it would take away 2 points from us on the oxygen track. So I think I'd like to prevent them from playing that. I'm not too scared about the Jovian multiplier right now, given that the opponent doesn't have any titanium production and only 1 Jovian in play. Gene Repair seems like it will be playable for us, and again, it synergizes with the Vitor ability. Toll Station, not strong enough, even though the opponent has 4 space cards in play. And we'll just take Research Outpost and Gene Repair. So I'm going to go ahead and develop the Research Outpost right away. And I'm going to get access to another area of the board. I'm going to place the city right here, giving me access to this card. And then once these oceans are placed, then I'll have access to these rebates as well. But I'm going to avoid putting my cards there so that the rebates are available in the future. Referring to the adjacency bonuses for the oceans. Solar power, not the strongest card, but given that we drew it for free and we're going to get a rebate from Vitor, it looks playable. Okay, and so the opponent plays Earth Catapult. That's a great card for them. They're already rich, and they're even richer now, and they have some card draw already. They developed their Martian Survey to draw some cards. Obviously, if you have global discounts on cards, card draw becomes even stronger. And with my floating titanium, I go ahead and develop Vesta Shipyard. Given that I've already spent the cash to buy it and I get a rebate from playing it, I think it makes sense to develop here. The opponent plays Dust Seals. They must have gotten that on a random draw. And the Colonizer Training Camp. And they're even spending heat on Archaeobacteria. So it looks like they're recognizing that I'm a little bit ahead, and the fact that I don't have any heat production is going to make it hard for me to control the pace of the game. Remember that the generation that the game ends is going to be the biggest determining factor in who wins the game. You can't expect your opponent to end the game for you when you're in a winning position. So you do need to think about, regardless of what kind of setup you have, how are you going to close the game out? And that's not something that I have an answer for right now. Well, here's something that will help. I need to find all the events that will increase the temperature, and here's one. So we'll definitely be taking lava flows. Some consideration for land claim. It's not nearly as good as lava flows for us, but perhaps the opponent can make our life a little complicated um, with the milestone fight if they use land claim in a strategic way. Space Station seems a little tempting for us, given that we have 2 titanium production. It'd be nice to develop some discounts, and we'd like to prevent the opponent from stacking discounts of their own. But Medical Lab is decent for both of us, and will continue advancing us towards AGT, which we'd like to get online. So we'll pick that one. These cards don't matter, and we'll just take Lava Flows and Medical Lab. And given that the opponent is set up to take the second heat production bonus, I'm going to go ahead and develop Lava Flows right now. It's only 1 heat production, but I'd rather have it than the opponent, and there's a chance that that heat could become relevant at some point. This will also give me access to this rebate spot, so perhaps once these oceans come down, I can put a greenery there. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and develop my greenery next to my city. Adaptation Tech, not the strongest card, but it does develop AGT. We get a rebate on it, so it only costs 8. And maybe it could be relevant for algae and bushes. The opponent develops Space Station followed by shuttles, so there they go, stacking the space discounts. That is a little scary for us. And they fund the Traveler Award. Seems reasonable. I'm in the driver's seat for all of the other awards, and the opponent is a bit behind, so they want to score some points while they can. That being said, I don't really have the time to claim any other awards, or at the moment I have too much to spend my cash on already. I do want to point out, even though I had 7 cash at the end of the last generation, I'm not playing the technology demonstration because, well, there's still anti-gravity technology that I can develop, and there's a number of other cards that synergize with both space tags and events that I haven't seen yet. So I'm keeping that in my pocket to perhaps make that card even better. Yes, mistake that I see weaker players make a lot is, if you have any cash left over, just spend it right away. Since I only had 7 cash, I'm not likely to find a card that I'm going to get an immediate benefit from, so it makes sense to continue waiting for those synergies. Generation 7 Draft. This is an interesting one. I'm not sure I made the right decision here, but given how much richer my opponent is than me, although granted, they're only a little richer than me right now, I don't want to get sabotaged. I'm not super enthusiastic about playing sabotage, but I would rather. I have so much to do that I don't want to get my cash taken away from me. Heather is almost online, so maybe some consideration for keeping that one instead. Breathing filters obviously is our 6th scientist tag, so some consideration there. Imported GHG also helps us with heat. We could get a second heat production. Ultimately, I decide sabotage is the card that I don't want my opponent to have the most. Okay, and so we have Earth Office and SF Memorial here to consider. Obviously, Traveler's just been funded, but we don't have any Earth cards in hand. SF Memorial does synergize with the Vitor ability and with Medical Lab. So I'm going to go ahead and take that one. Some consideration for imported GHD here, but I do want to keep getting science tags for AGT, and given our Vitor ability, breathing filters is pretty efficient scoring for us. So we'll keep SF Memorial and breathing filters here and forget the rest. Again, I don't really feel like I have enough cash to spend 3 more cash just to remove 7 from my opponent. Doesn't seem like it's worthwhile. Meanwhile, my opponent buys all 4 cards. All right, they play Asteroid. I'm not upset about that. Every event that increases the temperature track is good for me. I'm happy to pay the plants for it. That being said, I would like a conversion this turn so that I can develop small animals. So my plan here is going to be to play Solar Power and Domed Crater. I go ahead and develop the SF Memorial and then convert for 2 cash back. I need this cash in order to develop both Medical Lab and small animals this generation. The opponent develops Heather and imported GHG. And they get a 7 production satellites. So the rich become richer. Worth noting, I'm spending just 1 action here because the opponent spent 1 action, so I'm just following suit. Okay, and then they surprise with Convoy from Europa, followed by Commercial District. So this is an interesting play. There's no city next to this. They do continue to increase their cash production, but I think most relevant, they're cutting me off from getting these rebates, so I can't continue up here. Hard to say whether it's worthwhile for them, but I'd say on the net it probably is. Moreover, they are going to get 2 plants here and use that to take this O2 bonus from me, which I can't really do anything about. Again, spending 14 heat there, so another sign that my opponent isn't really enthusiastic about helping me end the game. I go ahead and develop the medical lab, and with the rebate, I draw with restricted area. Obviously, it would be nicer to draw with restricted area first, but I didn't have the cash to do that until getting the Vitor rebate. Towing a Comet is a nice find. Since I have 4 titanium, we'll have 6 next generation. and hopefully will help me set up those ocean rebates that I've been talking about. Okay, this is an interesting choice here between imported nitrogen and Cupola City. Between the two, imported nitrogen, clearly the stronger card, and my opponent has a net total of 9 discount on imported nitrogen, so quite strong. We don't necessarily know if they have a 1-point animal yet, but we do know that they have a half-point animal with ecological zone. They have psychrophiles, so imported nitrogen definitely a strong card for them. Cupola City quite strong for me given my plant production. There's a few strong places on the map. This spot being quite strong given that it sets up 2 hexes that are adjacent to 2 cities. So I think this Cupola City could score me 4 or 5 points and also give me access to this temperature bump. So arguably 5 or 6 points. Whereas imported nitrogen is probably 6 points at most. So the difference maker here is that Cupola City gets me to deny the spot to my opponent. I can develop some cash prod of my own and defend the award, which I see the opponent is starting to create a bit of a group here. So maybe they're going to fight. Excuse me. Maybe they're going to fight me on this award. I also have windmills to efficiently play this, and it's just about to turn off. So hard to imagine a better Cupola City than this, and I do end up taking it. And here we go. Standard tech is the answer to what I've been looking for. I've been mentioning how I'm not sure how I'm going to clear out or how I'm going to finish out this game. This is how I'm going to do it, and it also turns on AGT for me. Between plantation and lightning harvest doesn't really matter, and plantation is a cheap greenery for my opponent, so I'd rather them not have it. But I won't be taking it because I make granaries every generation. So I'm going to go ahead and develop Cupola City before it turns off. And I do want to get this particular tile. I know that my opponent can block off this spot with ecological zone, which they do right away. But I'm going to develop Towing a Comet and then convert and get the ocean adjacency. Lava tube settlement could potentially be relevant. There's only one place to put it. And I go ahead and claim the temperature bump spot to turn on bushes. Opponent plays Giant Ice Asteroid. Given that I have Arctic Algae, they'll be able to kill 5 plants from me. But I'm not unhappy to see this since it's going to increase the temperature. But it looks like the opponent is planning to take some ocean bonuses of their own. And they develop Livestock, which I think is not the strongest card, but given that we know they have nitrogen, imported nitrogen, it's going to pay off for them for sure. And I developed Gene Repair here just to try to keep moving towards AGT. Some consideration for developing bushes or algae instead, but given that I know that AGT will be online, I think I'd like to get that on first before I play bushes or algae. Okay, so Deimos versus Mangrove here. Deimos is obviously quite a powerful card and will allow whoever has it to control the pace of the temperature track. And we'll also get the ocean bonus. And for me, I have 7 plants that could be destroyed, which I don't care too much about, but having this card in my hand gives me the power to play it when I want it to be played, which is the most relevant part of it in this game. Mangrove would be great, given that if I place a tile here, it will definitely seal up Landscaper for me. And I'm thinking at this point, if I win Landscaper, I win the game. Maybe I have a chance to win the game if I don't win Landscaper. But if I give the opponent Deimos, they can place an ocean tile there, which will block me off anyway. So, while I'd like to take Mangrove, I think Deimos has to be taken here. We have two different microbe collectors here. We know that the opponent has imported nitrogen, so they'll score a point on either one. Between the two, Decomposer is definitely better for us, given that we have advanced ecosystems. The opponent does have a microbe collector in Psychrophiles, but given that they can spend the Psychrophiles whenever they want, it's not guaranteed that we'll get any value out of ants. And Decomposers is cheaper to boot, so we'll take that one. And Optimal Error Breaking comes back. So this returns back to the discussion earlier on not playing Tech Demo. So this is going to reward us with 3 cash and 3 heat for waiting. Some consideration for Moss, given that we have Decomposers, but given that it's Generation 9, unlikely to pay off. And we have plenty to do anyway. The opponent plays Corporate Stronghold next to these 3 greeneries. And they're going to play a standard project greenery in this 4 cashback spot. So they're starting to put some pressure on this Landscaper award. Meanwhile, my strategy is cut out for me. I have to get AGT online. I'd like to get this 14% oxygen, but I'd also like to make sure that I do it as efficiently as possible. The opponent develops ants. They take a tardigrade, so fortunately I don't have to worry about them taking a decomposer. I can go ahead and develop that right away. And then I can develop bushes and convert for the last oxygen TR. I convert here to connect up this group. I'd really rather not let the opponent place here to split up my group and get 3 points with a city. And remember, we also know that they have land claim. So if they place a city here and land claim, they'll prevent my group from meeting up. Although I would really like to get this 6 cashback spot. There comes the imported nitrogen. Big value for the opponent. Now I'm going to finally develop optimal error breaking and play the tech demo. But not before the opponent plays another standard project greenery, and they're closing in on this 6 cashback spot. Relevant draws from tech demo. And the opponent sells 3 cards, and they play a standard project city in the 6 cashback spot. So they have all of a sudden jumped out to a significant lead in Landscaper by 3. I do still have a greenery every generation, so I'm feeling decent about my ability to defend it, but given that they've flipped the award, they're now in the lead. So like I said, I'm feeling like I have 2 options. I can either try to outscore them, which could be difficult given how rich they are. The other option is to try to make sure that I win the award. Some strong cards on this draft. Immigrant City is a very cheap city. Some newer players may be tempted to play Immigrant City early for its effect. That's not really the best way to play Immigrant City in most cases, especially two-player games. In multiplayer games like three, especially four-player games, then it can pay off that way. But consider that when you play Immigrant City, you're actually going down in production. Immigrant City usually a lot more effective to play late when you've already got a spot set up for it, and it's as cheap as possible. So this is the perfect time for it, and I am fighting that award. Mining Expedition, not relevant here. Ice Cap Melting, certainly relevant, given that it's the cheapest single ocean card available. And Virus as well, relevant for both players, given that we are fighting over the board. I end up deciding to take Virus, given that it's a fairly large swing between the opponent having it or me having it. In Merchant's Guild, it's too late for this card to pay off, but not too late for Viral Enhancers. We have plenty of synergies with it still. We're going to take it. And Immigrant City comes back, which means we now know the opponent has Ice Cap Melting. So we'll take the first three cards. Immigrant City definitely could be relevant here. And wow, that's a draw off the top. Predators is exactly what I need here. If the game continues much longer, I need a way to keep scoring to keep up with my opponent who's earning a lot more money than me. I no longer have points from the oxygen track from my greeneries. So Predators is a big swing in terms of taking the opponent's 1 point per turn in livestock and turning it into 1 point per turn for me. So that's a 2 point swing every turn. And given that Protected Habs isn't in play yet, I'm going to try to get it down as quickly as possible. And go ahead and use the virus to remove 2 livestock. The opponent already played nitrogen, so no danger of them running out of cows on the card. The opponent plays Water Infiltrate from Europa. That's a bit of a surprise to me. Sort of telegraphs that they must have another Jovian multiplier in hand, or else they wouldn't play it. Worth noting, the opponent recognizes that I could be ending the game at some point without them having finished playing all of their point scoring cards. So they want to make sure that they have as many points in play as possible. That's an important concept in games like this that are fairly close and where either player could potentially end. You want to make sure you keep scoring as much as you can to try to put the game out of reach for the opponent from both being able to end and outscore you. So, given that the opponent has chosen to do this, I do feel like I need to fund the last award. Highlander is extremely well in hand for me. Promoter is a bit competitive. I do have 2 events in hand, but the opponent also has 8 cards, so we know that they have Ice Cap Melting, and we suspect that they might have Land Claim as well. And I've calculated that I can claim Highlander and still be able to threaten to end the game next generation. So I go ahead and do that. You do need to keep in mind having the ability to end the game. And it's worth planning 1 or 2 generations ahead to have enough cash for that. I didn't have enough cash this generation, but I do know that I can have enough cash next generation. And given that I'm still in the lead despite losing the Landscaper Award, this is going to allow me to keep my options open as much as possible. You'll notice as well that I haven't been converting my plants here. I'm storing them up. I'm thinking a bit about how I could potentially flip the Landscaper Award back. There's a couple of ways that I could do it. Either expanding the group on the east, expanding the group on the northwest and connecting up to the restricted area, and simultaneously trying to deny my opponent from taking spaces at the top. This all would be quite expensive for me, and I don't have a ton of cash to play with. And meanwhile, the opponent has tons of cash. They can play standard projects all day long. So I'm concerned that if I were to develop my immigrant city down here, they could cut me off with the land claim or with any other card that could fit in here or block me off. So keeping my plants banked up keeps me flexible and allows me to respond. If my opponent plays cities over here, then maybe I will focus on the right side of the board instead. So the opponent develops Phobos Space Haven just to try to keep scoring points. All right, Generation 11. Out of these cards, most of these don't matter. Media Group doesn't quite break even for me. It could very well be beneficial for the opponent. It's only going to cost 3. The card itself will be free for them. So I'm going to at least pick that to deny it. Fusion Power, I'm at first somewhat excited to see, given that I have a number of cities in hand. That being said, I'm also cognizant of trying to keep enough cash to end the game. But given that neither of us have power, I'm going to go ahead and take Fusion. The other cards aren't relevant. Black Polar Dust is just as good as a standard project for me. And Immigration Settle seems far too expensive for either one of us. At some point, I have an idea of maybe I could play Equatorial Magnetizer as a way to continue scoring points along with Fusion Power and Robotic Workforce. But I end up taking Lycan instead, given that the opponent has three animals on Ecological Zone. Some consideration for taking Fusion Power here, but I decide to not take any cards to keep me as flexible as possible to end the game. If I really want power for Immigrant City or Lava Tube Settlement, I have standard projects, which only cost 8, and I have Robotic Workforce, which will cost only 6. So the opponent is cognizant of this, my being able to threaten flipping the award, and I think they've come to the same conclusion that they need to win this award in order to win the game. And so they do an interesting play here, and they standard project 2 cities. I think if this were me, I would put them up in the north and connect here with a standard project greenery, which will at least score some points and expand their lead in Landscaper. They're obviously trying to block me here. This limits my ability to put down cities. I could still put greeneries down here, which will score points for them. But given that I'm banking up my plants here, I'm feeling pretty good about this. I've just forced them to spend 50 cash on 0 points to try to defend their award that they have. And given that I know that I can end the game, I'm going to try to stall them out, given that now that they only have 29 cash and 17 heat to spend. And if so, then I know that I can end the game and win. You'll notice that even though I said I want to stall them out, I'm still taking 2 actions. If I took 1 action, I know that they would just take 1 action right back. It doesn't make a difference. So given that they're the first player and they played 2 actions, I'm just going to follow suit. I draw out Invention Contest from Restricted Area. I go ahead and play it right away. Some consideration for Urbanized Area, but I already have 2 other cities that cost energy, so I'm going to go ahead with Olympus Conference. But I doubt that I will play it given that I'm eyeing ending the game. And the opponent does play the Immigration Settles. Hard to classify that as a mistake, given they've just played 2 cities. They're clearly banking on the game continuing, so that would involve more cities being played. So it seems like the opponent knows that's the only way that they can win, so they may as well try to score as many points as they can. And as well, Cartel doesn't score them any points, but pays off immediately if the game continues. So sensible from the opponent. I'm going to continue to sell some cards that don't matter. And the opponent passes. So here I'll go ahead and show the sequence that I can use to end the game. I can convert force to titanium, use that to play Deimos. And if you'll recall, the oceans here in the center of the board give 6 heat, as well as 3 from optimal air braking. That's going to give me enough to get 2 temperature bumps. And I have enough to play another standard project at Aquifer and 2 standard project asteroids. And after having this uninterrupted sequence of actions, I'm able to connect up my greeneries without my opponent being able to stop me. And this is kind of what I was looking for by banking up my plants. In my excitement to end the game, I forget that I have steel to spend on Olympus Conference and sell it, but I do play the advanced ecosystems for 4 points. At the end of the game, the score is 120 to 86. I think the game was a lot closer than the score kind of reflects. Again, the opponent spent 50 cash on 0 points at the end to defend the award. And that was thanks to the strategic jockeying over the award. But given how rich the opponent was, I think that if it weren't for having the ability to force them to pass and give me the uninterrupted sequence of events, the game could have still gone either way. This jockeying over the award and having the ability to threaten to end the game, undoubtedly also some strong point scoring cards died in the opponent's hand as well. And that helped increase the margin of victory as well. So hopefully everyone enjoyed this game, maybe learned something. Feel free to ask me in the comments if you have any questions. Thanks for watching, and see you in a future video.